All right, what is going on, everybody?
Welcome
Welcome
back,
into another
everybody,
episode.
to the.
Oh, wait, we're both doing the intro. We're on a delay.
Shit.
Go ahead, Jack. Run it.
Wait, is it alright
Run it.
now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I think it should be good now. But yeah, welcome back to the putback. This is episode 22. Missed last week, had people away, obviously, but we're back. We've had a lot happen in the last 2 weeks. A couple of trades, a couple of trade rumors, and of course the All Star selections have happened, which will be the main topic of today. Before we get into anything, of course, make sure you guys check out stadiumrant.com. We got all the articles on all the sports in the world right now. We've got a YouTube, we've got a TikTok, X, Facebook, all that. So make sure you guys check it out. Go cop some merch, all that. And yeah, we're back. It's me and Nolan today. Davinsky couldn't make it. Driving's back to college. So it was just us two today. But hey man, how's it been? How's the NBA looking right now, you think?
Honestly, I mean, every time I kind of go through and every couple days I'll check the standings in the league, and so far it hasn't moved a ton. Over the last couple of weeks, everybody's kind of finding a bit of their footing. The only one that's kind of fallen down, we did have the Magic. We're sitting in that fifth spot, and they've fallen a bit, and the Pacers have basically replaced them. But that's just kind of the nature of the beast when everybody's separated by a half game or 2 games. Where if you go on a bit of a skid, then team's going to catch you. And if that's how it happens, where you miss the playoffs, it can happen that quickly, even this early into the season, not even halfway through. So nothing too crazy in the West. I mean, it's again, everybody's within a half game or a game of each other, it seems like. So if you ask me if this is going to be the final landscape of the NBA in 2 months, absolutely not. It'll be completely
Right.
different, except for maybe, the Thunder and Rockets sitting at the top, Cleveland and Boston at the top. Those teams are going to be sitting up near that top. But as far as maybe 3 through 6 or 7, it's going to be fun. It's going to come down to the wire pretty much the rest of the year.
And we said it at the start of the season, it was going to be a dogfight out west for those playoff teams. We didn't expect the Rockets to be one of those teams that are safe, but we said there's 12 teams contending for playoff spots, and that's still true. I think the Spurs right now are sitting in 12, and they're still looking to compete this year. So yeah, it's going to be a dogfight for those play-in spots, with like the Kings, the Suns, the Warriors, Spurs, as we mentioned, and like the Mavericks. So yeah, but you mentioned the Pacers. Pacers, I think, are on a 5-game win streak right now. They've looked a lot better recently, with the return to Tyrese Halliburton's play. He's looked a lot better over the last month or so, getting back to his 2023-2024 campaign. So that's really good to see for him and Pacers fans. And yeah, the Magic, they've just got their superstar wings back. So yeah, hopefully they'll pick it back up. But it's fun, man. It's fun. The NBA has been fun the last few weeks. It's been a lot of great games. The Rockets, as we mentioned, have been insane. Beat the Celtics, beat the Cavs twice, beat the Thunder just the other night. So with that in mind, a player of the week this week, who's up on screen right now, that boy Amin Thompson, who has been probably a top 3 defender in basketball over the last month, and has just improved drastically recently. Offensively, scored a career high 33 points just the other night. So shout out to Amin. He's been really good, and he's player of the week. But let's dive into, before we start our All-Star stuff, a lot of buzz has been circulating around a particular player for trade rumors, which breaks my heart, obviously, as a Kings fan. But the Aaron Fox has been in a lot of trade rumors. He, there's no trade that's been requested as of yet. But he's been talking, so there's been a few teams that have popped up, like the Spurs. Spurs have been a big name. But did you have any destinations you think he could possibly land, or what did you think of the whole situation?
Honestly, I've kind of taken it with a grain of salt until I kind of see like teams that say, "Oh, they've been on the phone with them." And I haven't seen a ton of that. I've just seen
Right.
speculation of, "Oh, I think this team should call them," or he would be a good fit if you trade this all star for him. I mean, there were even wild
Yeah.
talks that there would be some kind of 3-team trade, and Trae Young would be part of that package to try and match the value of De'Aaron Fox. So, I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors right now. Um, would that be a big time deal if Sacramento moved away from him right now? Yeah, absolutely, because they're starting to put together a win streak and they're figuring things out. Then you're going to trade away one of your best players. So I don't see it happening until I legitimately see uh, any kind of news come forward, like, oh, the Spurs have put together this package to offer Sacramento for him. I haven't seen any of that yet, but if it does come out, if they put those together, then absolutely, I could see this trade rumor process kind of speeding up, becoming more realistic, especially as the deadline gets closer.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of started with Mike Brown's firing. Since then, it's been a bit awkward for De'Aaron in the locker room. He said some things after that game, and obviously it eventually led to Mike Brown being fired, which has worked out great. Doug Christie's been excellent. The Kings have been great since then. De'Aaron Fox was injured for quite a few of those games, but yeah, he's honestly he's looked more and more expendable as we've won more and more games without him. But obviously, I think majority of Kings fans would agree that we'd want to keep him and sign him to that extension. He did turn down an extension this past off season, hoping to make All NBA, which would make him more money on a new extension. But it's not looking like that's going to happen based on the fact that he wasn't an All Star. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's not too long before the trade deadline, so the Kings are the Kings. They'll make a panic trade. They might just do it. But as far as where I'd want to see him go, I don't hate the Spurs if he was going to get traded. Obviously, you've got the attraction of Wemby there. He's from Texas, so it's close to home. As far as like a return from the Spurs, they do have Atlanta's first round pick this year, and with Jalen Johnson's recent injury, that could actually be a very good pick. So that would be definitely one of the pieces that the Kings would be after, I'd imagine, and then maybe one of those young players, a Stephon Castle type guy. I don't know if the Spurs are willing to give up that pick and Stephon Castle for a 27-year-old, but I guess we'll find out. But hopefully this all just dies down and the Kings go on and win the championship, and we can act
Yeah,
like this never happens.
yeah. Only can hope from here that it goes in a good direction versus a bad one. But as far as like a team that kind of makes sense, I agree with you that the Spurs could be, if they want the package to work out, kind of a sleeper team just because they have plenty of draft capital to dish out, would be somebody like Oklahoma City. But they don't need him. They're top of the West
No.
right now. You don't need to go get De'Aaron Fox, but that would be a very Oklahoma City thing to do, to say, hey, we got the draft capital, throw it towards Sacramento and say, hey, you want to get rid of him? Here's 7 draft picks, something crazy,
Right.
and they can hand it over. So just kind of depends if it becomes more true, who's willing to maybe offer the right package if Sacramento actually wants to move on from him.
I mean, that would be insane if he somehow landed with OKC. That'd just be disgusting. The contracts would be strange. I think you'd have to trade probably Isaiah Hardenstein or Lou Dort in that deal, and I don't know if they'll want to do that realistically. But you never know in the NBA. The thing is, like most teams have a set point guard already. Most competing teams, at least. And if you're trading for De'Aaron Fox, you're not going to be like the Wizards aren't going to trade for De'Aaron Fox because why would they? They're tanking, So if you're a competing team, you look at like the Thunder. Obviously, have Shea, Celtics have Drew Holiday, the Cavs have Darius Garland, etc. So there's not a lot of teams that have room for him. Another team is the Rockets that we mentioned, because Fred VanVleet's been okay, but obviously De'Aaron Fox would be a jump. It doesn't really help your spacing issue that Houston have because they are one of the lowest 3-point attempt teams in the league already, and adding a 34% 3-point shooter to that is an ideal. Although he does take a few, so he'd definitely get the attempts up. But yeah. We'll never know until it happens. But moving on, we came out with the All-Star reserves yesterday on TNT. Obviously, there's always a lot of backlash when the All-Star names come out because people's favorite players didn't make it. And this year, there's been a couple names that have serviced a lot. But what were your thoughts on the teams and who deserved and who didn't deserve to make it?
So honestly, for the most part, the guys that made it don't really surprise me. A lot of those bigger names that are in there. Um, I am surprised that I was pretty close on how many All Stars the Cavs were going to get, because I remember a few episodes ago, you and Draven asked me, is it possible for Cleveland to get more than 2 All Stars? And I said, oh, 4 would be a little crazy, but 3, if the votes go the right way, I could see it happening. Well, now I've got 3 of them in there, so I mean, Cleveland's getting all the love this year. But then obviously kind of some of the surprising ones. Jalen Williams is a 20-point a night guy. I did not see him sneaking in as a reserve. But I mean, the Thunder are playing good. So if you're going to reward a team for being back at the top of your conference, then I guess sometimes that means them getting all-star reserve players.
Sure.
But other than that, I mean, just kind of looking, like I said, at these lists, I don't see any other names on here where I'm like, no, you don't deserve to be there in some way. And that's kind of where the snub conversation gets difficult, because it's like, all right, there are some guys that are snubs, and we'll talk about them. But then you have to have the tough conversation of who do you replace in the all-star lineup with those guys? Can you make a legitimate argument that they deserve to be there over the guys who are in right now? And I will say, I have a couple of them where I thought they were going to be in. We're probably going to be in agreement on who it is, but yeah, no major surprises, a couple little surprises.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Like a guy like Tyler Hero making the All Star for the first time, he was in a conversation that he'll probably be a snub to a guy like Trae Young, to a guy like LaMelo, but ultimately he got it, and I have no problems with it because Tyler Hero has had a really good season. The Heat are still relatively competitive, even with whatever Jimmy Butler's been on this year. So I think it's fully deserved. It's just hard when you only have 7 reserve spots available and there's so much talent in the league. But yeah, my biggest snub was actually Domantas Sabonis. Not because Trae Young's been thrown around a lot. Domantas Sabonis, right? He's leading the league in 3-point percentage. He's leading the league in rebounds per game. And I think he's averaging over 20 points per game. Again, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, obviously all-star numbers. I think everyone can agree. but it's tough in the West, and I'm not saying I disagree with who made it because Jaren's been having such a good season and he's been elite defensively again. And Sengun, while his numbers aren't as good as Sabonis's, the Rockets are the 2 seed, and he's like the best player on that team, in my opinion. So, you have to reward that, I understand, but it sucks for him. And honestly, De'Aaron Fox, I think he's 6th in the league in scoring still, like 26 points per game. So he's been having a down month or so. But again, another guy that definitely has all-star numbers, but it's just, he's in the West. A guy that made it that we didn't even mention when we were doing our all-star teams. I don't think you were here, but I don't think any of us mentioned James Harden, which is stupid on our part now because obviously the Clippers did not have high expectations coming into the season, but they've been great. And James Harden's been the forefront of that. Obviously, he's not the leading scorer because Norman Powell's been doing that. But yeah, James Harden's, I think, 21, and he's like 2nd or 3rd in the league in assists as well. So, again, deserved. It's just tough with so many spots out west.
No, yeah, absolutely. And my biggest snub, I was in agreement with you. Like I said, I knew we were going to be talking about it because I think not putting Sabonis in any way is unreal. And again, Jalen Williams having a great season for a very good Thunder team and has managed to be a 20-point a night guy despite what Shai Gilgeous is doing, despite what everybody else, all those complementary pieces are doing. He's playing great, but I would take Domantas Sabonis shooting 61% from the field and basically guaranteeing you 20 points and 15 rebounds over just a 20-point a night Jalen Williams any day of the week. I don't understand it, but I'm sitting in a loft talking to you on a live stream. So my vote does absolutely nothing, but I think it's absolute robbery that he did not get in. I think if you had a top 5 list, he should be number 1, 2, and 3. Like it is insane that you can score 21 a night, 15 rebounds a night, and you don't make the All-Star game. That is robbery, purely in the absolute top form. Other than that, though, I mean, Norman Powell scored 24 a night. You could have thrown him in there. The argument for Trae Young, you could have thrown him in there. But it's where do you kind of plug and pull away guys? I mean, LaMelo Ball, I agree, got snubbed. The conversation with him is just going to be missed time. And that's all. Unfortunately, that's what it'll always come down to is, well, if you miss a quarter of this first half of the season, why should you be in the All-Star game, even if you're putting up the numbers that he is? And that's fair. It's a fair argument. But at the same time, it's like, all right, but when he's in, I mean, look what he's doing. It's obvious that he is at that next level. Tyrese Maxey's in the same boat. He's putting up pretty much the same numbers that LaMelo is, maybe an assist less a night. And he's not in. I mean, he's scoring 27 a night right now. But you go look at the guards in the East. Would you put him in over Jalen Brunson? Probably not.
Right.
Would you put him in over Donovan Mitchell on the league-leading Cavs? Probably not. Like there's no one, I mean, on there where you say, all right, I could see you definitely pulling them out, and they aren't in the All-Star game anymore. It's difficult, and it's unfortunate that it is that way. But like I said, biggest one was Domantas Sabonis for me. That's robbery. The other guys, it's tough because there's a lot of good guards in the conferences that they play in Trae Young and LaMelo Ball. Kyrie Irving's in the same boat. I mean, Steph Curry's probably getting close to being done, kind of getting into this latter half of his career. You're not going to not put Steph Curry in. I mean, Shea Gilgeous is on an MVP level run again this year. Go look at the other guards. I mean, James Harden's putting up a double-double a night. You're not putting them in over them. It's just plain and simple. It's that's how it is. It's a popularity contest in the way that they have to try to appeal to what they think is going to sell tickets by having the big names in it, even if there are other guys that might be statistically beating them out in a couple of different ways.
Yeah, and I mean, for a guy like Kyrie, the Mavericks have been slipping without Luka, and I think with this, I think the idea is that the coaches have really, pressed winning teams to have all stars, because obviously the Kings, I think they're like the 10 seed right now, the Mavericks like the 9 seed. So they were more inclined to give the Grizzlies and the Rockets all-star guys, and even the Thunder, obviously getting J-Dub as well as Shea. So I mean, I understand it. I think if it was fan vote, it would probably be different. I think Sabonis probably would get in. Probably, I mean, LaMelo Ball definitely would have got in. He was number 1 in fan vote. It's interesting. He was number 1 in fan vote. Didn't get in at all with the coaches. And then you look at a guy like Pascal Siakam who made it, and he wasn't even top 10 in fan voting in the East front court. But the coaches decided that he deserved it, and I think so too. He's been playing really well. He's been keeping the Pacers afloat until Halliburton got back to good form. But yeah, it's interesting how it differentiates between fans and coaches and the media and everybody. I feel like coaches probably don't like Domantas Sabonis purely because he's like a real gritty player. Like, like I know the people playing against him don't like him because he's hard to play against, So I think the coaches, opted for a guy like Sengun, who's still a big body, but not as rough, I guess. You know what I mean? I think that probably played a little bit into it. But apart from that, man, I'm happy with the teams as they are. There'll be a few injury replacements, I believe, for Anthony Davis for one. So Sabonis will probably still get in as a front court player out west, and then I think there's another one I'm forgetting in the east. But regardless, the like guys like Trae Young, LaMelo Ball, and that they'll have a chance to get in on the reserves for an injury. Yeah. Moving on, there's a couple of other minor trades that went down. I don't know if we've talked about the Nick Richards trade on here yet. That was a while ago now, but he's looked pretty good as a center for Phoenix. They've still been up and down, but he's had a couple of like near 2020 games, which he only gave up a second round pick in Josh Okogie, so you take that, and then. The other trade that Phoenix did was trading, I think it's their 2031 first round pick for 3 first round picks from Utah. And what that does for Phoenix, right, is it opens up a lot more trade possibilities for a guy like Jimmy Butler. There's more draft capital available to throw. Just gives them more options trade wise. But Jimmy Butler, man, I don't know. He's been suspended indefinitely now. I have him on my fantasy team. I need him to get traded. So, but it's not looking like it's going to happen soon. Pat Riley is a real, he'll hold his ground. He's not just going to give in to any player. Because Jimmy's obviously done this before with Minnesota, and even Chicago to an extent. So. I don't know if he's going to get traded at this point.
No, yeah, it's kind of a roller coaster with that right now. I thought when I saw the news that Phoenix had traded for those picks, that I was like, all right, here it is. We're gonna get the news in like a day. that they front loaded for these picks just to trade them back over to Miami for Jimmy Butler. And obviously that hasn't happened. So it's, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I could see a very realistic thing where Jimmy Butler just doesn't play the rest of the year
Right.
because they leave him on suspension, and then they get into a contract dispute over the summer, and that we don't really hear anything until then, unless there's statements made or an action is made to where we're going to see something change. And it's unfortunate because I mean Jimmy Butler is a great player. He's a phenomenal player when he's on. I mean, you don't accidentally go to 2 finals in 4 years. That is not something you just fall into. He's led this Heat team. He's been the backbone of them for a few seasons now, and so it's interesting to see how quickly things can change for a superstar that is unhappy. And then when you have an owner on the other side of it that, like you said, Pat Riley ain't budging. He's not going anywhere. One, he's probably not ready for any kind of rebuild because realistically, if you move on from Jimmy Butler and you acquire draft picks, that's kind of the start of a rebuild. I don't think he's ready for that yet. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I would not be surprised if nothing happens with this and he's just suspended the rest of the year, or he's suspended until the last like week and then he doesn't play anyway. So we'll see what happens. If they make the playoffs, I could see the Heat trying to move on it and be like, hey, let's get you back in there. And then we can talk about this in the summertime. That would be the only other outcome I see happening quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think for Miami, with how low Jimmy's trade value is now, I don't think they're really getting much draft capital for him. Like they'll get at best an expiring contract, maybe one first round pick, depending on who you're trading him for. Obviously, if it's Phoenix he ends up going to, it'd be a Bradley Beal trade, which you don't love as a Heat fan because it's just another, good scoring player, but he's not going to get you over the edge into contention. But I like what Miami's got. Tyler here is obviously, as we said, a first-time All-Star this year. Bam Adebayo over the last few weeks has played really well next to Khalil Ware, who's been starting at center, and he's looked phenomenal. Sorry, putting up a lot of blocks. He's hitting threes. So their team is constructed pretty nicely around those three. They just need some more pieces, and if they can get some sort of piece for Jimmy Butler, then I don't hate the Heat as just maintaining the course, being a playoff team, waiting for more progression from Tyler Hero and Khalil Ware, and letting Bam run the show. But yeah, Jimmy Butler's and Miami in general are a mess right now. So we'll see what happens. Back to Amin Thompson. I want to talk about him and the Rockets a bit more. Obviously, with Amin's recent surge right into young stardom, I would say, it begs the question because Jabari Smith Jr. has been out injured, right, for quite a while now. It's got to be at least a month or two. So when he does come back, you'd assume he goes back into the starting lineup because Amin Thompson took his spot. But I don't think Amin Thompson can come off the bench anymore if you're Ime Udoka. So do you keep Jabari Smith Jr. off the bench? Do you take Dylan Brooks, put him on the bench, start him in at the 3? There's been a couple reports I've seen of the idea of Jalen Green coming off the bench. So you start Fred, Dylan, Amin, Jabari, and Alperen Sengun. Now, straight away you think it's a big lineup. Not a lot of shooting, but in all honesty, Jabari Smith's probably a better 3-point shooter than Jalen Green in this point of his career. Dylan Brooks has been hitting threes. Fred VanVleet can still hit threes. So the spacing's not bad. The defense on that team is elite, and that starting five. And it's like, do you need a player like Jalen Green who can just go get a bucket? Do you need him starting there? Honestly, not really in most cases. Obviously, he'll still play big minutes. He'll probably still play 29, hypothetically, if he does come off the bench, 29 to 33 minutes a game. But, starting with that elite defense, because their defense has already been so good with Jalen Green starting, I think it's worth exploring. Um, what was it? Yeah, I think I was looking at the Jalen Green, Amin Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr. minutes this year. They're, I think, a negative 8 plus minus, and then with um, Dylan Brooks, Jabari, and Amin, they're like a plus 14. So it's a big difference when you put it like that. Obviously, small sample size, but yeah, I think it could be worth exploring personally.
No, yeah. And honestly, I'm happy for the Rockets that they have the freedom to do this now, because this has been one of those projects that has just taken like a decade to build.
Right.
In all reality, I mean, but once James Harden left town, or well, when he arrived in Houston, that was kind of a good little run for them. But that was just kind of like the start. Like, hey, if we put together the right team, we can be legit. We just got to figure out where those pieces are, and then it's taken them every year. They've done little by little. The drafting of Jalen Green, of Jabari Smith, the trading or the signing of Fred VanVleet to a big free agency deal, Dylan Brooks to his big free agency deal, getting guys to be good complementary pieces. Like Cam Whitmore is a diamond in the rough coming in and out of the G League, that when they can use him right, he helps. And then obviously guys like Jayshawn Tate helping on the defensive end. They've just kind of found this group that works together. And so I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't maybe try to experiment here right before All-Star break, with, oh, maybe Jalen Green can be like not too long on the bench, but let's go a couple minutes here at the start. Let's see what this group can do. And if it doesn't work, you put Jalen Green right back in. But having the freedom to have enough guys on your roster where you're going to still get production out of them, to where you can put someone like Jalen Green on the bench, is a luxury. And that's where Houston has been trying to get for a while now. And I'm not going to say that they are NBA Finals ready, but are they damn well ahead of where we thought they were going to be? Absolutely,
Mm.
100%. They are taking a leap that we didn't think they would take for maybe another 2 to 3 years, until they could get guys developed, or maybe another draft pick here and there. Well, if they're going to play this well, then you ain't getting no top 10 draft pick. So if this is the group you're going to run it with, then so be it. Now you just got to make sure everybody's healthy, get Jabari Smith back, and hopefully healthy for a playoff run. This could just be one of those young teams where, inexperience could bite them in the butt, and it could be bad. And it could come back to haunt them. Or they're young, they can run the floor, but they have the veteran experience in some of their guards and their big man, Steven Adams, where they just have the pieces around it where it could work. They could compete and they could make serious noise if they can do it in the right way. But yeah, a lot of luxury right now for Houston. Again, this is the kind of team that they've been trying to build. I could not imagine this kind of roster with prime James Harden, like Houston level James Harden, with this many complementary pieces.
Right.
That would be an NBA Finals team. I would 100% say, yeah, they could beat anybody in the West if they can put it together. I would be confident in that, but obviously that's not happening. So Only time will tell what these guys can do together. But so far, uh, sitting at second in the West this far into the season, it's working.
Definitely working. I think there is like a hard cap on how good this team can be. As far as playoffs go, obviously they've been a great regular season team so far. It's going to be their first time as this group being in the playoffs. Maybe they won the first round matchup, but because the West is how it is, let's say they finished the 2 seed. Let's say the 7 seeds, like the Lakers, the Mavericks when Luka's healthy, the Clippers with James Harden, Kawhi. There's going to be a tough matchup against like seasoned teams. So it'll be really interesting. I think I like the idea of Jalen Green just running the second unit. Honestly, is why I'm so on board with that. Just a second unit of Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Tyrese, and Stephen Adams. Like that sounds fire. And then you put Amin Thompson in as the fifth guy in that. Keep him in, run the point. I don't hate that at all. And the other thing about Houston, they had the number 3 pick this year. Reed Shepard's just been sitting in the G League dropping 40 bombs all night. That's another guy that they have just ready to roll when they need him. And I think he'll be a really good NBA player from the looks of things. I mean, Thompson was the same last year. He was 4th overall. He played in the G League a lot. Second half of the season, he started to play more NBA minutes and looks pretty good. But he's obviously taking a huge leap. There's no saying Reed Shepard can't do that as well. And, end up taking that point guard spot over from Fred VanVleet, or at least becoming, that backup point guard for the Rockets later this season or early next season. Sky's the limit for this team, honestly. But I think this year they're probably a first round, second round exit, depending on who they play, of course, and injuries and all that. But yeah, apart from the Rockets, we got like a team like the Thunder who lost to the Rockets the other night. They smoked Cleveland a little while ago. They just lost to the Warriors. They just lost to the Warriors the other night as well. Shea had a 52-point game, his season high, his career high, spoiled by Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins. That was one of the best games of the year for me. I only got to watch the second half, but that was such a good game. And the team I wanted to actually talk about was the Warriors, who are 24 and 23 are now tied for the 10 seed with Sacramento. The team is so confusing. Obviously, they were great at the start of the season. They've been without Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga for the last good 10 games or so. Is this a team that you think can still sneak into the top 6 by season's end?
If they have everybody healthy, yeah, I could see them doing it. But it's going to. I know that's very cliche, but if they don't have everybody healthy, then no. Because
Right.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, if you would have told me that the Warriors were going to be that reliant on Draymond Green, I thought you were crazy. But it's weird because every time he's out for a stretch, you start to see it. That little rebound here and there, that steal, that block, that extra layup, things like that just kind of impact. And then obviously, a guy like Jonathan Kuminga was a project draft pick for them that has worked out, and he's really, really budding into a very solid key piece for this Warriors team, at least for the future. Post Steph Curry, if there's somebody that you're going to look to be a leader on this team, it's probably him. So without him on the team, yeah, you're starting to see it for sure. But if they can get everybody healthy, yeah, I think they sneak in for a play-in. I don't see them making a miracle run like they did a few seasons ago, winning a championship by any means. But I think they could give teams trouble. I could see them winning the play-in tournament if it went well. They rode out into the sunset. They could win the play-in tournament and make the playoffs. But then after that, with how gruesome the West is, and we keep saying that. I mean, we're gonna sound like broken records by the end of the year, but the West is tough, man, and I don't see them surviving very long in the full blown playoffs in the West. But I could see them winning a play-in tournament if they can get everybody healthy, and if they can continue to have guys like Buddy Hield and company producing. Um, this is it's a similar look team 2 years past, but is also very different in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry is not putting up 50 burgers, every week and a half. It is a more controlled environment in Golden State now. But if they can put it together, yeah, play-in tournament for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, when we did before the season started, when we did our rankings predictions, I had the Warriors. I'm pretty sure I had the Warriors as either the 11 or 12 seed, and then they started off the season so good. They were the 2 seed, 3 seed, 1 seed for a little bit, and I felt like an idiot. How dare I doubt Steph Curry, right? And then it all came crashing down, and I felt so much better about myself.
Yeah.
Um, and now they're now just floating in that 500 range. So I don't know how this team's gonna improve in the rankings because, like we keep saying, it's the West. You're not gonna climb in the rankings by winning one game, losing another, winning, losing, winning, losing. You need to go on like 8 game win streaks to really climb the rankings. We've seen Sacramento fall 5 games under 500 early, and then they had to go on a 7 game win streak just to get back into the play-in where they are now. So I don't know if the Warriors have it in them. It's interesting watching that OKC game. Steve Kerr left Steph Curry out of the game until about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He then subbed him out again for a defensive position, called timeout, then put him back in. It's like I think Steph Curry's. I mean, obviously he's getting old, but I think the fatigues might be getting to him a little bit at this point because he's, only playing 3-4 minutes of that whole last quarter in a close game against a 1 seed. Like, that's an important game for Golden State, and you're only playing your best player for 4 minutes. So that tells me that it's not just Steve Kerr's decision, and that but Wiggins has been awesome. I love watching Wiggins hoop. He's been really good. He had 27 against OKC. He's been getting back into form. But yeah, Jonathan Kuminga, as you said, they've been missing him. He's been their second best scorer, second most consistent at least all season. So when they finally get him back, that'll add another element. But I still don't think it's enough against these teams, especially when the Mavs get Luka back. We'll see what the Kings end up doing, but I think the Kings are probably a more deep team, a more reliant team at the end of the day than the Warriors. Obviously, the Clippers, the Grizzlies, Rockets, like those aren't teams that are going to slip so far down the standings that they'll fall out of the playoffs, the play-in completely. So they're going to be fighting for that 10 spot, I think, which is not ideal for one of the last seasons of a healthy Steph Curry.
No, yeah, absolutely not. And that it's kind of crazy that how far the Warriors can kind of dip down, and I think that was always a conversation that a lot of people were kind of a little scared to push off, just because it was like, all right, well, what does this team look like uh, post Steph Curry, or if Klay Thompson's gone, if Draymond Green's gone, what does this team look like? Well, we're getting a very good idea of what this team looks like. And Klay Thompson was the only one of that big three that is gone. And it's crazy how different this team really looks. Now, did they do a good job of kind of trying to replicate him or bring in Buddy Hield? Yes, absolutely. Because Buddy Hield is one of the best three-point shooters in the league, or was at one point. I mean, he makes a lot of them. Might not be efficient, but he makes a lot, and that's the MO of the Warriors is 3-and-D. So if that's the way they look now, then I mean it was just all in good time. That the eventually the aura and the ambiance of the Golden State Warriors pre COVID or even pre their last championship was just something that was coming down the barrel, and you had to wait and see what it looked like. And now it's here. So I think if the Warriors could win the play-in tournament, I think it'd speak volumes to what Steve Kerr and that coaching staff are doing over there, because you're having to go from being what they were talking about and arguably one of the best like dynasty runs for a franchise to quite literally the opposite of it. You're not bottom of the barrel getting high draft picks, but you're certainly not winning at the clip that you were 7 years ago. So, I think it'll speak volumes if they could make a play-in tournament that they still have just enough life left in them to make a playoff run, or at least getting into the regular playoffs. But yeah, I think you and I are in agreement that no matter where it goes, if it's full playoffs or just playing, it's probably not going to go very far. I don't think Steph Curry's got what's left in the tank. I mean, maybe he proves me wrong. They didn't think he was going to do jack shit in the Olympics, and the guy went nuclear and led him to a gold medal. So I mean, maybe he saved that last bit of energy for something like that. Maybe he doesn't. Only time will tell. Big question mark around them, but again, go look at the NBA standings and go look at the West. I mean, one legitimate run here and there. I mean, you're sitting in there like you make it. So it just depends when they want to try to put that final big run together right before playoff time.
Yeah, and you mentioned Buddy Hield. I think part of the reason for sure that they were so good at the start of the season was because Buddy Hield was playing the best basketball of his career, shooting insane percentages from free, and the rest of the team was hitting threes. And that's dropped drastically, and that's a big reason why. So they'll need a big push from a guy like Buddy Hield. Maybe just need Wiggins to be an all-star again, all-star level player, but that seems unlikely. The other team I wanted to talk about before we wrap it up is Philadelphia, who have sneaky won, I think, 7 games in a row right now. Tyrese Maxey is on fire. He's had 12 straight 28-plus point per game point games, tying Allen Iverson as the most in Sixer history. Joel Embiid is still obviously a huge question mark. Paul George is a question mark at this point, but they're like a game and a half out of the 10 seed, right? So do you call it quits on the season? Do you just tell Embiid to rest for the rest of the year? Tell Paul George to rest for the rest of the year, and let's go get a good draft pick? Or do you try to get them good? You sneak into the playoffs as like a 7-8 seed, and all of a sudden that's a powerhouse team. That's still a powerhouse team if Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey are all healthy, and you could sneak in like a 7-8 seed, and have a chance to go up against like the Cavs in the first rounds.
That's a tough one. Man, I was kind of looking at their last set of games. So they won 4 in a row. Prior to that, they lost 7 in a row. Man, I don't know. That's a tough question because they only lost by 3 against Cleveland one night. But then, I mean, you go back and look at other matchups between them, and it was bad. It wasn't in their favor. Knowing Nick Nurse and company, they'll push for the playoffs. Nick Nurse is too competitive of a coach. If he sees a window, he's jumping through it. And I can't say I blame him. It's kind of crazy that at 19-27 in the East, you're not out of it. And I know, I know we're not even to All-Star break yet, but 19-27, any other like league or sport, you're like, oh, they're done. There's no way, right? But they're tied with Chicago right now for the 10th seed. They're tied. They're 2 games back from the Hawks, and they're 3.5 back from the Pistons and the Magic. So if they put together a good winning streak, which they're on a 4-game one right now, if they could continue to win, then yeah, absolutely go for it. Push. If you have everybody healthy and you're bringing Embiid back in time for a playoff run, Paul George back for a playoff run, you have Tyrese Maxey scoring almost 30 a night, and then you add in your other complementary pieces, why not? You could make some damage that nobody thought you were going to make because they thought your season was down and out a month and a half ago, a.k.a. myself, a.k.a. JC. He's not in the comment section tonight, but the man roots for the team, and he knew that a month ago, there's no way. But now, here we are, and it's possible. It's not impossible anymore. It was impossible, but they flipped it. So, yeah, I think if they have the chance, go for it. Do it. Yeah, I mean, realistically, how many more chances are you going to get before Philly and company, like, they start to think, we should move off from maybe these guys? You know, when does the cutoff for Joel Embiid? When do you maybe move away from him? Does Paul George get traded mid-season type deal? Do you move him away and eat the money on his contract? Oh, it's a ticking time bomb in Philly. So they got to decide, do you want to go out guns a-blazing, or do you want to sit back? And when you ask me that, I think they should go for it. If you can win games like this, then go for it. If you're going to continue to try to compete at a playoff level, then go for it. And being only this many games out right before All-Star break, I see no reason why you shouldn't make a big push. Because clearly the East is leaving it wide open for you to, heck, even make a push for the 6th seed, like you said. They could do it. It's not out of the question.
Yeah.
Again, at 19-27, does that sound insane? Yes, but it's not impossible anymore, which is crazy. So make the push. If I had to answer it, make the push.
And it's hilarious. The 11 seed out west is 24 and 23, and the 11 seed out east is eight games under 500.
Yep, drastic difference.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And it sounds obvious, right? If you have the chance to make a playoff push, you do it. But on the other hand, you know, Joel Embiid's knees, they don't really work anymore. You know, Paul George is 35 years old. You've got Jared McCain out for the season, but he's going to come back. He was looking like Rookie of the Year favorite for sure. So hypothetically, if you bottom out this year and get another top pick, you know, let's say hypothetically you just suck the rest of the season and you're one of the worst teams, and then you somehow land a guy like Cooper Flagg, right? Then you got Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and Cooper Flagg to rebuild around, plus the trade assets of Paul George and Joel Embiid. Like that sounds amazing, right? But that's their other option. But I think with a guy like Joel, he's not going to have a lot of trade value as much as the other superstars in the league because again, it's like with centers like that, teams already have their centers that are competing and that have the assets to give up. So I think you kind of have to stick out this contract with Joel and probably with Paul George too, because again he's old and he's been on the decline, by the looks of it at least. But I would honestly, as much as I don't care about Philly, I would love nothing more than for Paul George to just bounce back and just go crazy rest of the season. Joel Embiid, it'd just be absolute cinema for this team who looked terrible to just come back and steal the 6th seed and make the conference finals. But it's definitely unlikely. But it's the Eastern Conference. The Pacers,
it seems
injuries happen. The Pacers have risen up.
Yeah, it seems like way out
That's
there.
exactly right.
It does not seem like it should be in a conversation, but the logistics of it, the more you look at it, like I said, the more you dig deeper into it, it's like, damn, they're not out of it, not all the way.
Yeah.
They should have been. They should have just let it be all the way out, but here they are. It's yeah. I mean, I honestly, I mean, I can only imagine what the mood in that locker room is if they got to like a 10-win streak. Like if they continue the one they're on right now and get to 10, and they go, well, shit. I mean, give them 6 more wins, you're sitting at the 6th seed if it goes right. Like that could be a sign in their locker room if they win enough games out and they make the playoffs. Well, shit. I mean, here they did it. Obviously, with it, a lot of basketball left.
Yeah.
Like a extreme amount of basketball left, but it's not impossible. Which is, man. I hope JC. I don't get JC's hopes up. He's a lot. He's a lot smarter than I am with this stuff, and he knows what to and not to invest in sports wise. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, look, it's a dogfight because I think even with how they are now, even if Joel Embiid doesn't come back to full form or whatever, I think the Sixers probably still beat out Chicago for that 10 spot at the least, at the minimum. So they're going to be in the play-in regardless, I think. And at that point, you're not getting a top 8-7 pick, so you might as well just try and make the playoffs. So they're in a weird position, but they've definitely got options. But yeah, man. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, honestly, I mean, I love the snub conversation we had. It was a much needed one. Want to hopefully try and get all the guys back on here. I could plug one other thing. We are going to be filming a interview on Sunday afternoon with former G League player Trevor Hudgens. He plays overseas right now in France. We're going to be talking to him. It'll be pre-recorded. We can get a post put together for details on when that'll go out. But guy I went to college with, he's a awesome dude, truly humble, G League and NBA minutes under his belt. So he's seen it all. He shook hands with Steph Curry and been there. So it'll be fun to talk to him about his basketball career. I got to watch most of it in college. He's got one hell of a laundry list of achievements at the D2 level. So we'll be chatting about that stuff. So just be on the lookout for when that interview comes out, I believe me and Davinsky are gonna be chatting with him. So that was the only other kind of plug thing I had tonight, other than NBA All-Star Weekend is coming up fast, and I'm excited for this new format and for all the festivities coming up. But we got a little bit of basketball left before that.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the new format. I'm really interested how the teams are going to be drafted, because obviously they've done East and West again, but we'll find that out in due time. But yes, as he mentioned, make sure you guys follow every Stadium Rant social media account so that you guys will know when that interview is dropping, because that's going to be some good content. Nolan and Davinsky will be with that. Again, stadiumrant.com. Make sure you guys check it out. Everything basketball, everything football, everything sports. Thank you again for tuning in to episode 22. We'll be back next week for the Michael Jordan episode 23. Actually, I think I should probably call it the LeBron episode.
Probably,
but
Davinsky would
we got
call
an
it
NBA
that.
fan here, so that's cool.
Yeah, Davinsky would
He
call it
damn
the
sure
LeBron
would.
episode anyway. So. All right, y'all.
The Glorious King episode.
Yeah, the Glorious King episode. We'll even
Okay.
we can title that for you if you want.